Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Yarns with Andy. Today I've got Bjorn. Bjorn's had an interesting career in construction. He's made a transition from working from multiple different organizations to starting his own and doing business for himself. Let's hear from Bjorn. Thank you so much for being here, mate.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself, your background, and how you kind of made that transition from working for big companies to kind of working for yourself?
Was kind of a...
Let's start with your background.
Okay, so yeah, I started building back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Just, standard Kiwi sort of builder.
Yeah.
Did quite a few renovations in the Ponsonby, Greyland, Herne Bay area. Did a lot of villas. Really enjoyed that.
So it's predominantly renos, or was it new builds as well?
It was a mix of both, and then sort of branched out to the new builds as they sort of came on more and more. As Auckland's growing, and then taking up roles with the likes of Signature Homes and GJ's and Fletcher Living and that over the years as well, site supervising and project managing, and so that's sort of been the journey and the progression, and sort of started off quite small, and I've done some interesting projects over the years. Had dabbled in the commercial space as well, and you find that one is quite a bit different when you take the leap across the bridge from
So what made you take the leap across into starting your own thing?
Well, I've kind of always liked the idea of doing my own thing. It's not always practical. I mean, the construction and just the building game in itself is, quite big ticket items. Things are quite expensive, and so you've got to build the capital to get that happening. So I've always sort of worked and tried to do a little bit on the side here and there, and try to build my own base.
How did you do that exactly? How did you build your own base?
I suppose it's kind of very similar to most Kiwi builders that find a project for themselves. A couple of years ago, I bought a monolithic clad place with the idea of recladding that, and did the reclad, and then sold that, and then bought a place that I've got now which has a section, and doing a relocatable onto that, just because the cost per square metre doesn't stack up to build new at this point in time, just with the way things are in the market. So that's sort of been what I've liked to do while working on the bigger projects that I've been doing for the likes of Fletcher Living and whatnot.
So you've been running your own projects while you've been working for all of these different companies. That must have been quite challenging. At
times, yes and no. I mean, with running my own, I have been off the tools. So I mean, you plan it right.
Yeah.
Then don't have to be there. But if
can you say that again?
Yeah, if you plan it right, you don't have to be there. But I mean, I'm
story of my life, bro.
Yeah, but if it's if it's small and manageable.
Yeah,
not always the case, as you know as well. But with the best intentions, the wheels still fall off from time to time. But so that's what I've sort of dabbled at. I still enjoy the bigger projects and working in the corporate environment because there's a lot of learning, and the industry's changed a lot. It's changing quite quickly, and I think New Zealand's still behind some of our international counterparts, which would be good for us to adopt a lot more. In New Zealand, when I was finishing up at Fletcher Living, their Clevercore stuff was coming on quite strong.
I actually work for Clevercore.
Are you doing some stuff for them?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did a while ago. A couple of years ago, I helped them set up their base program of how everything goes together. Like the emphasis on design, what the design process was, how long it takes to design. So context around the listeners who don't know what Clevercore is, how would you describe Clevercore?
It's a panelised building that comes together on site pretty quick.
Yeah. What's that? So you put a house together in what, 3 days, 4 days, or something like
that? You've got the superstructure up in about a week.
Yeah. So you're weather tight in a week.
You're weather tight in a week on, for example, a 6-unit block of terraces.
Yeah.
So I think that is good. I'd like to see a lot more of that picked up in the industry. I think that especially with our weather, the challenges that we have, if it's prefabbed in a factory and it finds its way to site and you're only on site after slab for, a few weeks as opposed to 6 months, those things I think will be quite transformative, and I think could bring the.
But they come with their own challenges as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've still got to clad it after, and you've got to plaster paint and do all the rest of it. But I mean,
but think about your tolerance levels. So if you're out by a couple of millimeters on your prefab every time, how's that going to fit together on site?
Yeah, well, I think the one that I worked on, Clivical guys had that pretty well. I mean, it all comes down to your slab. I mean, with timber and that, you've got a little bit of forgiveness, but with the slab, that's where you'd
Millimeter
find
accuracy.
Yeah, you'd find the accuracy's got to be bang on. But yeah, I was most impressed probably by the time on site. The long and short is weather tight in a week. With the amount of rain we've had this year, you can just imagine how many builders would have been pulling their hair out trying to get things closed in and not being able to. So, yeah, I'd like to see us use the prefab technology, not just of panelisation, but even just fully built units, down in the small resi space all the way up to apartments. I don't know if you've seen Teak of doing one down in Point Chev that looks like it's come together pretty quick.
That's containerized units.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. That's company called Anyways, I work for the company that.
Oh yeah. That's something that I'd like to see and like to get involved with in the future. Is just seeing more of that go on and seeing things speed up.
Yeah, for sure. But okay, so just come back to the original question.
Yeah.
How are you finding it on your own out in this market?
It's challenging. I mean, biggest thing is a lot of the big guys still suck up some quality resources. So being small, you've got to wait your turn.
You busy?
I'm busy at the moment, and obviously we're just about to hit the silly season. So just got to make sure that program runs so that I'm not running short this side of Christmas with labour and whatnot, and getting everything to site, because every time you're late. And
would you ever go back to full-time employment?
Potentially with a right offer.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I've always said that. I don't think I'll ever go back to full-time employment now that I've seen what this side of the world has to offer as a consultant, as running my own little business. I mean, never say never, I suppose. But
yeah, never say never. I would say that, like the things I like about the corporate world sometimes is you can switch off a little bit more. When you're doing it for yourself, you're engaged, you're always on. It's the hardest thing is doing your own thing is when you just try and turn it off at the end of the day, because you're always thinking about the next step. And, when you've been project managing and programming jobs and that, it becomes a habit and you got to break it. Like even going on holiday, it takes 3 days just to, literally turn down the revs of the mind.
Yeah, interesting insights. So Bjorn, earlier you said we as New Zealand can look overseas and we can learn from what's happening overseas and implement in New Zealand. What were you referring to?
So in the early 2000s, I did a little bit of time in Melbourne, and when you just see coming from Auckland, it felt like I was came from a small town compared to a big city, and
We are a small town.
Yeah, things just tend to work better, and so you just try and, I feel like...
How so? Give me a few examples.
Just if you just take it from the wide view with general infrastructure working well, public transport working well. One thing that surprised me in Melbourne when I was an apprentice was I saw guys get on the train with a tool bag and get to work on their public transport and get to the site. And what the company would do was they would have a gear van arrive. So the guys didn't have to worry. You didn't have 20 tradesmen show up with 20 utes all looking for a spot to park. You had the guys just bring themselves in and had the gear there. Just little things like that, just unheard of here. And you can extrapolate that out to so many different parts of the process, and actually seems less wasteful if you can, get some of those things happening.
Do you not think we punch above our weights for the amount of people we've got in New Zealand?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why.
I mean, look at it, right? So we are what, 5 million people?
We are.
We have a landmass that is greater than that of the UK. Yep. So you have 5 million people's taxpayers' money to build roads for a landmass that is greater than that of the UK, and have enough telephone coverage, enough services, enough Just
Yeah.
general infrastructure.
We do punch above our weight, and I think one of the problems with that is that we also lose a lot of our talent to doing that.
Interesting.
You know, I think I'm just thinking generally, not just in construction.
Yeah, brain drain's a
Yeah,
serious problem in New Zealand. I'm
you know,
not
so-
arguing it.
But
It
I mean,
isn't.
yeah, I also think though that we tend to try and go it alone sometimes.
Mm.
You know, I think that we tend to try and like come up with an idea in New Zealand all the time for our own problems, which part of it is, yes, it needs to have a local solution, but if there's a system already out there that's working, you know, how can we not picking them up
Yeah,
and
fair.
adopting them quicker or whatever, you know? I find that,
What are some of the things you'd implement?
well, I don't know, I mean,
What would you look overseas for to bring back to New Zealand?
you've already seen a lot of it with a lot of the software stuff that's coming in is starting to get picked up, but I'd like to probably see a little bit more standardization across companies so that, you know, every time I've moved, I've had to learn a new system. And as good as that is for the company that's doing, I don't always, I find that a lot of that is still inefficient, you know, still really downtime creating, and also can be frustrating while you're still trying to deliver on site. You're trying to learn a system as well. I mean, you've seen it yourself firsthand. Not all systems are smooth.
Yep.
And and you just want to remove as much friction as you can. You've got enough problems in construction delivering the actual product, let alone having your systems let you down, or you know.
But that's
sucking
never
things
going
up.
to happen, is it? So you're asking 30 different construction companies to all use the same systems.
No, not all use the same systems, but maybe a similar approach.
Yeah.
You know, I've found one thing I have found is we have still got quite a really strong top-down approach. Like, you know, do as I say, not as I do all the time in some of these organisations, and you know, and to me, I think sometimes when the information gets fed up and it gets picked up by the guys, and those guys get helped, it actually improves the output, the efficiency, you know, the mood, the the morale on site. Because sometimes the guys feel on site, especially when you're on a job that's got a tight time frame and a lot of guys. And
Do you think that's a New Zealand problem?
Oh no, I'd say it'd be construction in general, wouldn't it?
It is pretty much construction in general all over the world, though,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? Like, why do you think that is, though?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Just I think that, you know, everyone's got different KPIs and they're all kind of focusing on their part of the problem. So, you know, and if you're part of the problem, if you're a manager and you're dealing with the high level things, and the guy's feeding information back up to you or saying, oh, we want to deal with this little issue, that might just be going over your head because it's not part of your scope of thinking.
Yeah, interesting. What else is there that you would look to the overseas market to solve the New Zealand problems that we've got today?
I don't know, maybe maybe our approach to labour. I'm not sure whether we've got our labour management too good at the moment, you know.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas to like stop the brain drain from happening in New Zealand?
I don't know. Maybe from a real broad perspective, I think that New Zealand's kind of got a real boom and bust cycle. You know, some of them older cities don't seem to have that. Seems to be, you know, we seem to have we rocket off and then we come back down pretty quickly with a bit of a crash, and then when things are low, you know, and there's not work, people leave the industry and some people don't come back. So maybe we've just got to soften the trajectory and the descent.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when the next boom and bust cycle is. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like COVID had
that does happen quite a bit in New Zealand, though. Eh?
Yeah, I mean, COVID created a boom with just the money and the fact that no one could go anywhere. So, you know, people kind of, you know, got stuck in locally. But I think you've already noticed a bit of a softening on that mindset. People are not trying to, you know, create at that breakneck speed as they were, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, with these interest rates, mate.
Yeah, well, not just with the interest rates, but with like, you know, you couldn't do anything else. You know, construction could only just work, but, you know, you couldn't go anywhere on the weekends or anything. So people were kind of tunnel visioned, and, you know, we're sort of normalizing back to don't have to do that right now.
Yeah. Interesting insights. So Bjorn, you worked as a project manager for multiple different companies, and you've dealt with a lot of engineers to the contracts. Can we discuss some of your experiences with engineers to contracts?
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting one, eh?
I know it's an interesting one, eh? I don't know. I just thought I'd wing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's your thoughts on what do you mean by my thoughts on them? As in,
What some of your experiences working with engineers to contracts, and let's talk about how those engagements have gone
I think,
with examples if you can.
yep. I think one of the things that I've found, and when you go to the PCGs and you've got the engineers to the contract there, some of them are just really there to tick a box for the client, and are good at doing that. Others are really sort of want to dig in and question how things are going on site and why things are the way they are and what the impacts are, and take that approach. So I think it's really about finding where they fit as far as are they really valuable on some of the smaller projects? Is there a dollar value that we should be aiming to have an engineer to the contract on? I know that a lot of it's for the government projects to have the arm's length thing to make sure that they've got an independent checking over it before the money's released, which makes sense. But at the end of the day, there's just another layer in, another cost that potentially, if you've got good in-house QSs and CAs and project managers directly with the government organisation that has the contract, they should be able to potentially approve a lot of that themselves and directly.
Are you talking about KO?
Well, KO is one that I've worked on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just got to make sure that taxpayer dollar in that sense is not getting wasted.
Yep.
But in the other sense, they've also, they do have a place, but I don't know whether it's as much as they've been utilised at the moment. Because some of those people that are in that space, the consultants and the engineer to the contract, some of them might actually, could be in the industry deployed in other areas that could be quite handy, both client side and contractor side, without having that sort of their own little slice of the pie in a build process.
So you reckon that's a layer of bureaucracy that we could avoid?
Yeah, I'm always for less bureaucracy. I think in New Zealand we've got a lot of red tape for a small place.
But the new revision of the contract proposes that you have an ETC and an independent verifier, I believe. Have you?
No, I
read the
haven't. I
amendments?
haven't heard about that yet. So you could give us the update.
I can't remember the full update on the top of my head, but there is another added layer of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an added layer of bureaucracy, but there's two independent parties now. So there's an independent assessor or verifier. I'm not exactly cut that bit out. I'm not sure what I exactly said. Fuck. So there's two parties, which is
The ETC plus another set of consultants to
independent certifier to then for your cost claims and for your time claims.
Yeah, I don't know if that doesn't really make sense.
Read the proposed amendments.
Yeah.
I think it's called DZ3910.
Yeah.
If you just search up DZ3910.
But our government is very keen to always add more legislation. So, they have historically been pretty keen. I think sometimes the industry needs to push back and just try and say, look, what's practical here?
How do we do that though as an industry? Like,
well, I think
what are the mechanisms to do that?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to start by analysing the risk. What is the risk if something goes wrong here at this, with this project and with this contract, and what's the dollar value at stake and all that sort of stuff. So I think it could be done by just literally by financial bands. Anything under 10 million doesn't require, that extra layer sort of thing. Anything over 10 maybe. There's just ideas, but I don't think we need to just be creating layers for layers' sake. And that's just a thought.
Interesting.
What do you think? Do you think we should be having extra layers in there, Andy? From a planning point of view, how do you plan that all in? And, we've already got enough meetings running jobs as it is.
I have very strong views.
Oh, we'll share them, Andy. Come on. Don't be shy.
Have you seen my previous podcast? I'm just like...
we're both going to end up having to have our faces blurred out, Make some of the comments where you're taking this.
I know. I'd like to see a world where we utilize AI more and cut through all the fucking red tape, right? Use better digitalized technology, use the 3D models as centroids of your project, and get to quicker decision making.
Yeah.
Some of the key problems I think we have in New Zealand are we think it's okay to not make a decision until we have all the right information. But I strongly believe indecision is the worst decision you can ever make.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen it cost so many businesses, both on the contractor side and on the client side, a lot of money when a decision can't be made. And
It's not it can be made. We refuse to make decisions in a timely fashion,
Yeah.
or just make the fucking call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put everything on the line. It's okay. Because the amount of time you waste in not making a decision is insane.
Well, if you were to add up all of the pauses on a job for just variations alone, and you were to look at that downtime, and I'll just take just a round figure, say you're doing 10 units at a $10 million build cost, apartment building, and you end up with 10 variations, and each variation you stop the job for a week. I mean, at 10 variations, it's 10 weeks. It's almost 3 months.
That's a very simplistic view.
Yeah, but almost
yeah.
3 months of the year if someone hasn't been able to make a call or doesn't have the license to make the call.
And yeah,
So-
and it's the amount of times you've got to replan your resources, reschedule
Well, that's right.
everything on site. And
And with
it's interesting.
And with certain skilled trades, there's only so many in Auckland. We're the biggest city yet. We've still got finite resources. When you think about specifics, you're talking, things like intermittent paints. Imagine putting that out and then losing your spot in a queue, and that could have a knock-on effect. That's been one that I've had in the past. Structural steel's been another one. Waterproofing membranes and being able to do those.
Doors.
Doors, fire doors.
Doors are a big issue now, aren't they?
Fire doors. I was booking. We essentially, you got to put your order in off the plans, and so your frames can't be wrong because.
Yeah, I think
chance.
lead time for door procurement's about a year and a half now.
Yeah, basically, you
Just
sign the
insanity.
contract, and your QS has to have the purchase orders the next day.
Yeah, for your doors, for sure. It's crazy.
So for quite a few items. So when you think about it, those you're right. Making a decision in that case is really important, and then having. I'd like to see more companies kind of back their site teams a little bit. You do find that, the guys on site, when they get, slapped over the wrist too many times, for making calls, or whether it be from the QS team or from construction managers or directors, the guys get gun shy, and then, that doesn't help the project either.
Interesting. Yeah. Cheers for your opinions on that,
Yeah.
man. That's pretty cool.
Thanks, Andy. My question for Andy is, you do get out on site from time to time, and you're running a few different softwares through some of your different clients.
Yeah.
What's been the feedback from site teams, project managers, site managers, for what works well, especially things like health and safety feedback, quality assurance? That all ties into when you're sort of going to make a claim, and it all sort of there are some softwares that are bringing it all together, but I haven't seen ones that have sort of got an end-to-end solution yet. What are you seeing that's working well?
I have a vision that's different.
Yep.
What's working well? Just fucking nothing.
So nothing's working. So we're just
we're
plodding along.
That's probably pretty brutal.
Yeah.
No, there are some innovative things happening in the industry, though,
Yeah.
which is quite cool. But I'll talk about it from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people use Microsoft Projects, which I don't rate as a good planning tool at all. That's just a glorified Excel spreadsheet. So for those of you using Microsoft Projects, just fucking scrap it and move on to better tools out there. Seriously. I know people use it because it's cheap and it's accessible. I understand why they use it.
And it's been around a long time. So it
Well-
what you're really saying is it's had its day.
We're at the age of AI today.
Yeah.
and we in the construction industry are still stuck with fucking Excel spreadsheets for everything. Like, dude, let's get rid of them, man. Like, hey, spreadsheets aren't a place where you record data. It's just not a place to record data. It's not. It's a platform that was created to analyze data.
Yeah.
Not enter data.
Yeah.
You see, there's a fundamental difference, and how we use it in construction is just we use it to enter data and store data.
Yep.
Like, it's a great analysis platform. Like, without an argument, Excel's a great analysis platform. I mean, and now you can move that into Power BI and whatnot.
Yeah.
But some of the tools that I'm trying out is a software called Aster Power Projects. License is not crazy expensive. It's a single user license is not too bad. If you want to know how much, hit me up. I'll tell you.
Yep, fair enough.
The power that brings is quite cool. Like, it's a platform where you can integrate your 3D model into your programs, where you start looking at 4D modeling, and that then, it's like your programs become so much better. You have effective communication from that point in time, because you then alter your program. You're visually seeing, from a methodology perspective, how your methodology changes.
Yeah,
that becomes quite powerful, And it's just as simple as to use like Microsoft Projects. It's not. It's no more complicated than Microsoft Projects.
Are you still seeing much of the Oracle stuff, Primavera, and that get used?
P6 is the tool that everybody uses, right? And P6 has been around for such a long time, and there's a reason it's been around for such a long time. It's a robust planning system. It's a robust planning tool, but there's also a finite amount of people that can use P6. There aren't 1,000 people in New Zealand that use P6.
Yeah.
There are a handful of people that use P6.
Yeah, I mean, back when we were using it on site, and we're just basically in a site office, and we're just basically using it as a milestone tool for us. We haven't got time to redo the plan on site. So using the right plan up front, you need good planners for that, to help the guys on site. Or you need
people that know how to interrogate a plan. Okay. Hands down, right? Okay. Doesn't matter what tool you use, the concept's still the same.
That's right.
Yep. So it's the fundamentals. Come back to your basic fundamentals. How many people in New Zealand do you think would be able to calculate total float manually on a piece of paper?
Probably none, almost, these days.
Yeah. How many? I forget the planners. I'm talking about the site managers, the project managers. How many of those people would be able to calculate total float manually?
I'd say a handful.
I don't know, mate. Show me one.
Oh, yeah. But what I mean by that is they could potentially sort of, take a broad brush approach and say, okay, we want it done in this time frame, and they just ring the boss and say, are we tracking? And that's pretty much what you get from a site team, right?
But then how are you tracking? But then, see, for me as a planner, right, total float, just that one concept of total float, understanding that concept of total float is everything to me. That's literally how I plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without that, I don't understand criticality of an event, the criticality of a chain of tasks, right?
Yeah.
And it blows my mind how many people just go use it as a visualization tool and not actually interrogate a program. Like that skill is really missing.
Yeah, I'd say that, even just from MS Projects, when you look at your critical path, right? And I've come into jobs partway through, and you've had that program there, and there's a whole lot of stuff missing that's not even on that critical path. And you're like, well, how are we going to achieve this if this is not there, that's not there, this is not there? So by the end, if you were to add all of that back in, you're adding a huge amount of time onto that project. And then, sometimes bosses don't want to hear it because they're the ones that did it, or they don't want to go to the client and say, hey, look, and realistically, these things are going to punch it out by 3 weeks, a month, 3 months.
This comes back to scope gaps, right?
That's right.
So you're just like, okay, so the root cause then now comes back to, why do you have a scope gap?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, so hear me out. Okay, why do you have a scope gap, right? Because somebody looked at a drawing and didn't look at all the elements or didn't do a proper takeoff from the drawings.
Yes, I also say that QSs, architects, engineers that are at the pre-con, there should be a level of construction team feeding back, because the way a builder would look at a set of plans.
There's a process, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so you have a design.
Yep.
Okay, we need to do a takeoff from a design.
That's right.
And then, do we do takeoffs in New Zealand?
And in what
Hi,
way?
people. Okay, so then that takeoffs then go to a planner and a QS.
Yep.
The QS costs it. The planner uses that as its fundamental basis to create a program.
Yep.
How many times does that happen?
Just once.
No. How many times in New Zealand, in different projects in New Zealand, does a planner get a list of takeoffs to then create a program?
Oh no, he never. He has to do it
Exactly.
himself.
So he has to do it himself.
That's right,
See,
and he's basing it on all of his assumptions and his methodology.
Yes.
But his methodology is not necessarily what the site team will come up
are
with.
going to build
Yeah,
to.
exactly.
Yeah. So there's massive disconnects all the way through that process.
Yeah.
Right. What if we can change all of that?
I know. That's why you exist, Andy.
That's why I exist. Fuck, you know, yeah. I think I spoke about this in an earlier podcast as well. What if we could make the 3D model the centroid of your planning process?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it out there, and
Why can't we shop draw off 3D models?
well, yeah, shop drawings are a massive one, you know.
Why can't you do your takeoffs of 3D models? Why can't you come up with simulations of how you're going to build with a 3D model linked to a program? Why can't you link your cost back to a 3D model? Link everything back to a 3D model. Make that 3D model your centroid of your entire construction project. That would revolutionize and change everything. In my opinion, it would.
Yeah.
Used effectively and implemented effectively.
Yeah, I think then there's a huge amount of training for the guys that are then feeding back in.
I don't think so.
I think
Not with AI.
Yeah, I would say, you know, like you've been in construction, Andy, like me, a little while, and you know what the guys on site, the guys that are putting it together at the end of the day.
Let's simplify it for them.
Yeah, let's simplify those.
The guys on
let's simplify
site
the
don't give a
inputs.
fuck about anything else
No, they don't.
apart from building.
That's right.
They don't want to do any paperwork. They don't want to deal with all the shit. They just want to come out there and do a good job. They just want to build.
Yeah,
How about we enable them to do that?
yeah.
How do we do it?
Oh, well, yeah, that's right. Well, if we could plan it to a way where we've stripped it to the simplest possible,
Absolutely.
you know, things that they can think about on site.
Keep it simple.
You know,
Yeah. But anyways, those are my views.
Yeah, cool. We can wrap that one.
Huh?
We can wrap that one. That's good. There's enough in there.
Yeah, fuck, that was... sorry, I got a bit intense in there. Bjorn, that was a really interesting chat, mate, and appreciate all your insights into the world of construction. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
Anytime, mate. It's an absolute pleasure having you.
I'm looking forward to see this perfect project off your 3D model delivered this year, mate.
This year, you reckon? This year?
That's the challenge. No, 2024 might be the year for you to have that perfect 3D interface running.
No, that's why I'm focusing all my efforts into the tendering world, because I believe that's where I can make the most change.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah.
And you could probably pick up a lot of flaws in that, you know, if it's getting analysed right at the start and you've got a 3D model and people have had to plan off that and they pick up pinch points right then and there, you know, you're not too far. You haven't broken ground yet. So you're not too far down the track. You can pull some of that slop back.
See? Oh, I've already converted you, I can see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Cool,
man.
bro.
I appreciate you being here.